If you're anything like me, or if I'm anything like you, we've always had like these thoughts that we can see the world a little different than the rest of the people around us. And maybe we're not so much into the world as we are in tune with the world and what around us is occurring. And so sometimes we find ourselves feeling ostracized from everybody else. And when you look around and you see everything that's happening and you see all of the different mental and physical distractions that take place in the world, sometimes as a conscious person, you can find yourself, feeling a bit defeated or deflated and ultimately insignificant. And that was one of the reasons why I wanted to like maybe start a YouTube channel and hopefully reach out to people that were like minded. And maybe we would be able to connect through the internet. And a few months back, I was just kind of feeling very stagnant. I just kind of felt like I didn't know where my life was really heading. I've always been a very optimistic person. I always thought that things were going to just work out for me. And as long as I put in the work and did something, then something would work. And I just kind of felt like things were just going in circles for me. It was like I just was working to pay my bills. And so what I did is I downsized and I moved, and now I'm starting to see a little bit of results of that. I'm starting to have a little more money in my pocket, but I'm also still working a lot like I was. And I don't know, I just kind of feel like things aren't happening the way that I would like them to be. And I feel myself kind of being very critical of myself or of the things that I'm not doing or the things that I am doing. I find myself feeling very critical of, the reason why my life isn't changing or opportunities aren't presenting themselves, and the types of opportunities that I would desire to present themselves aren't happening is because of myself. And sometimes I feel like there's a lot of weight that I carry because everything for me is by me, and I feel like I just do everything for me. And that's part of this journey that we do. I mean, most of the time it is going to be all by you, but sometimes you got family members or people that you can rely on. And some of us out there don't necessarily have people that we would feel like we could rely on or we would want to rely on. And what ends up happening is you rely on yourself. And with all of that weight, sometimes the weight does get heavy and you kind of feel yourself um, getting weak and crumbling in certain areas. And so you'll find yourself being very critical of yourself. And I told myself that, I wanted to do this channel. And so I haven't been doing it as consistently as I would like, but I finally just decided, hey, you know what? I got the day off. Let me go ahead and put some energy into it. And I didn't really know what I wanted to talk about. And I wasn't sure what I wanted to put out into the world. And that's when I kind of got this like bright idea or reminder of this book that I read a while back called Power versus Force. And to kind of sum the book, it's basically teaching us that when you operate in power, you don't have to force things. And too often, when we are ambitious and we want success, sometimes we think things should occur a certain way and we end up trying to force these things into action. And a lot of times we forget the thing that we already know, which is, life kind of has its process and its due process. And as long as you follow the path, then it'll lead you to where you're supposed to be. Sometimes we want to speed that up. And I came across one of my favorite parts of the book, which was the map of consciousness. And when you're like a conscious person, or you consider yourself to be a conscious person who can be in tune with life and those around you and what's occurring and see things on a deeper level, sometimes you forget about the levels of consciousness that can occur. And so I came across the book and I was just kind of skimming through it again, and I found it and I was like, yo, let me go through that. And so that is what I ended up wanting to share, is the maps of consciousness, as a reminder to not only myself but whoever comes across this video, is that there's levels to thinking that keep us at a higher level. And then there's things that are around us that can lower our levels of thinking, especially when you're secluded and you're all alone. Um, so I wanted to share that. And like the bottom half of the levels of consciousness are like on one side, where it kind of shows you like different energy points that the author had came up with. And it's basically, you can see the arrows pointing down, which is meaning it's a lower level of thinking. And then there's this one right here, which is up and down, where it just shows that, that's kind of a middle ground. It's not a high level of thinking or a lower level of thinking. And so I could feel myself kind of feeling a little bit disappointed and also hopeless and insignificant, and feeling like, what is it that I'm doing that can make a difference in the world? And hopefully by making a difference in the world, that makes a difference in my life. And so because I was feeling hopeless, I was kind of condemning myself a little bit, which was leading to apathy. And the apathy kind of leads you into feeling despair, where that sense of hope of things going to work out kind of is not there. And so you kind of, digress in your thinking and you become very critical of yourself. And so these things kind of lead you into lower levels of thinking. And, I was kind of just going throughout the day, and I decided to like clean up and everything. And I could feel myself feeling a sense of pride about myself. And that sense of pride was kind of making me feel a little indifferent about my situation. um you know and feeling indifferent, I felt the demands of my higher self telling me that there's things that I should be doing and there's things that I should be accomplishing, because there's a life that I desire to live. And the only way that I could get there is by me. It's not like I'm going to be able to rely on anybody else. And so I could find myself scorning myself, being mad at myself. And, feeling that way has, inflated me, because now I'm feeling like, I got to do something about this. Like I have to be the one that makes a difference for my life if I want to make a difference for my life. I'm tired of feeling like I'm just walking in circles. And in order to have that, you have to start being permitting of yourself. We can't be entirely critical of our actions. Sometimes we have to be permitting and allow ourselves to feel, feasible, which will give us courage. And in that courage, it'll allow us to affirm the things that we already believe, which is, for me, I always just felt like things were going to work out for me and things are supposed to work out for me. You know, I'm supposed to have a good life, and I'm supposed to be somebody who helps other people have a good life. And that is what I started affirming myself. And when you have these affirmations, it empowers you by affirming the beliefs that you have and the grander thoughts that you have of yourself. It's empowering. But in order to be empowered, you have to be permitting of yourself. And so once we get to this middle ground, to this mid guard of living, and we've overcome shame, guilt, apathy, grief, fear, desire, anger, as we get out of these lower stages of thinking and we can get to a middle ground of empowerment, well, then we can become enabling of ourselves. And when we are enabling ourselves, then you start to have a bit of satisfactory for the things that you are doing. And when you're feeling satisfactory, that you're saying, okay, you know what, maybe things aren't moving as fast as I would like them to move, but I am doing something and I am putting in work towards something, then you start to have this neutrality with, where things are. And you're not feeling sad and you're not feeling overjoyous either. You just feel like, okay, I'm satisfied. I know things are going to work out. And when you start to feel that way, you're able to trust yourself and the process of life and everything that you're working towards. And maybe the path that you're on isn't exactly leading in your mind to where you believe that it should go, but you have to have the trust that things will lead to where you want them to go. And when you're able to like attract that and feel that, then what it does is it gives you, when you have that trust, it gives you a chance to release whatever it is that you're holding on to. And the sense of disappointment that you're feeling in yourself, you can let it go because you're beginning to trust the process of things that are happening. And that feeling like you're walking in circles can be let go. And if you can abide in that feeling, well, then you become inspiring. And now you feel inspired because you've let go of the thing that has been weighing you down. And for me personally, it's been feeling like I know that I should be somebody that is successful in my eyes. And in my eyes, I feel like a success, but I don't feel successful. And maybe um as time goes on, you feel inspired and you say to yourself, maybe I'm not successful, but I'm inspired to get to that success. And when you feel inspired, you begin to feel hopeful, and you begin to see, down the road it will work out. And when you have that hope, now you have the willingness to put in the effort. And that's exactly what I needed to even do this video, is that I just needed to have the willingness to say, you know what, I have everything that I need to do it. And sure, I'm not gonna, I may not have like 100 million views or things like that, but maybe the 4 or 5 people that do see it, I can touch them. And so you have the willingness to put in the effort, and that willingness leads to optimism, and you begin to feel optimistic about the future. And that is how we take ourselves out of a lower level of thinking into a higher level of thinking, and we start to feel optimistic about our future and what our future holds from the work that we've put in, and that optimism leads to intention. And so now you start to do things with intention, and you're not just doing things just to do them. You start to have meaning behind what you're doing. And to get to these higher levels, you first have to get to the point of where you're feeling like you permit yourself to do things, and that leads to your courage, and your courage should lead to your affirmations of yourself, which empowers yourself. And now we can get to these points of trust and optimism, and then we get to these even higher levels. And one thing that I was always taught is that love is the highest level of being. And I think that love is a very high level of being, as this map of consciousness is showing. But right now, I think for me personally, the place that I'm trying to reach is joy. Because there's points and times where I have joy, but it's not as continual as I would like it because of me feeling disappointed in myself, which kind of brings me back down into these areas. But in order to get to that point of feeling the joy that you would desire, you had to feel one with everything around you and be at peace with it, and know that whatever is supposed to happen for you will happen for you. And the human nature of yourself, which is to want things at a faster pace, don't always align with the spiritual aspect of things, and how quickly those things move. And so sometimes you have to wait for those things to kind of align, and it can be frustrating. And so when you feel this oneness with yourself and life around you, you start to feel complete. And when you feel the completeness that you are exactly where you need to be, you are exactly who you need to be in order to get to where it is that you see yourself going or desire to be, that is when you can be in that joy. And the only way to get to that joy is to feel the oneness with your life and not be so critical of yourself. Not to say that you shouldn't um, have high standards for yourself and not allow yourself to not be the best version of yourself every day. But you want to feel completeness with yourself and knowing that that process is taking place. And when you can have that completeness, it leads to joy, and it leads to serenity. And when you feel that serenity, that is when you start to really speed up the process of the spiritual aspect of this human existence. And that's what the transfiguration is that serenity with who you are and where you are and what you are will lead to your oneness with life, which then leads to the spiritual world catching up to where you are in the physical world. And that transfiguration and that serenity and that all of that joy, it leads to you feeling like all being, meaning that you are perfect just the way that you are, and your perfection is taking process in this life. The imperfections that you feel within yourself are the things that make you perfect. And when you know that you are perfect, and you know that everything is taking place for you, and not to you, well, then that's when you can have peace. And that peace is going to lead to bliss. And that bliss leads to your illumination in this life. And so I think that that's where we all should kind of be striving towards is this level of living. And the highest of high levels of living, which is you know what it says, self is enlightenment, where this at this point you become one with God, and you become one with everything around you, because you realize the God within you. And I think when you get to this part of this enlightenment, that's true enlightenment. You become ineffable, which is pure consciousness. And very seldom do people get to this level of consciousness. It's a very hard task, especially in the times that we live in. And you think of people like historical figures such as like God, or I mean Jesus, or Muhammad. It's usually figures of like holiness that reach this level. And although this would be the goal, and I think overall throughout the consciousness of life and the lives that we live, this is the ultimate goal, which is the realizing that we are all God as one together. This is God. Um, this is the ultimate level. But to be more humanistic and realistic in this being, the highest level that we should be striving for, is, especially as conscious people, is having that peace. And that peace will lead to our bliss, which will lead to our illumination, which can get us to the highest of high. But first we want to become, you know, we want to feel like we are perfect just the way that we are. And this life that we live isn't so much as important as what we're learning along the way. And when we become all being, we in one with our life, and when we feel that perfection, that can lead to our peace. So if you find yourself being over demanding of yourself, or overcritical of yourself, or like I feel sometimes very, you just feel kind of very insignificant in the world, because you feel like you should be more significant. And it's easy for these states of consciousness to come and go. It's like being on the freeway, and you go to these different levels of consciousness. And we want to try to make sure that in order for us to get to this peace that we're looking for, the first step to creating the avalanche of higher consciousness of living is, first we have to permit ourselves to the choices that we are making, and we have to have the courage to make the choices that we're making. And when you are acting in courage to do things that you desire to do, it is going to affirm whatever it is that you believe about yourself, and whatever it is you believe should happen for yourself. And that is when you start to feel that empowerment. And so this is why sometimes, we forget that the most important space before we can get to our highest level of thinking is this level of thinking right here, which is having the courage to do the things that we feel within our spirit that we should be doing, and having the courage to do them. Because once we have the courage to do them, it affirms what we already believe in ourselves. And when we can affirm what we believe in ourselves, it empowers us. And that leads to the avalanche of higher level of thinking, because we become enabling, inspiring, merciful, and which leads to our wisdom and loving, and so on. And our everyday goal should be to, at some point on the highway of consciousness, we want to be in the far left lane of feeling all being, feeling perfect, which will lead to our peace, which will lead to our bliss. And that bliss of feeling the peace and feeling perfect will lead to our illumination. And that illumination will make life in the spirit realm of who you are and who you want to be within you, make them come in alignment at a faster rate. And so if we want to speed up the process, the easiest way to speed up the process is to be at peace. And as much as I'm telling you this, I'm telling myself this. So hopefully this is something that can encourage you to do whatever it is that you're doing. And I highly recommend reading this book and picking this book up. It's called Power versus Force. It's a great book, and it's kind of hard to miss. You know, if you go into like a bookstore, you can find it anywhere. It's got a black and white cover. It's a really dope book, and you know, I highly recommend getting it. Even if you don't like to read, just get it for the map of consciousness to keep a reminder of yourself. You know, and this is something that I'm, you know, I'm happy that I remembered to come across it because I was about to say some disappointing stuff, but I'm happy that I remembered to come across it, and then it gave me the idea to share. And so when I was feeling like, well, what do I share? And here we go. So thanks for tuning in. I appreciate you guys, and you know, stay being a 3%er and keep chasing that peace. I'll see you guys on the next one.